It is 4 o'clock now, board members. Our first item is our Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chair, please read our mission statement.
The mission of the Marshall Public School District is to educate, support, and prepare all learners for success.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any additions? Hearing none, please vote. It is approved. Tiger Spotlight. Week. And it's been a trying year for our teachers, but I tell you what, they came through with flying colors. You want to add to that? Yeah, you can.
So May 3rd through 7th this week, we celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week. And like any other year, teachers have had to be flexible, adjust in a moment's notice without coaching and supporting of students and families throughout this pandemic. Words cannot express the amount of gratitude we feel for our staff for their work and continued dedication to our district. So happy Teacher Appreciation Week 2021. I want to say thank you to all of our staff for, certainly this year, especially all the extra work that they've done.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Now we'll move on to National School Nurses Week. They probably had the toughest year ever, I would think. So we can go ahead and read
Yeah,
that.
it certainly has been a tough year for our nurses too, and they've really stepped up and did a great job this year as well. A lot has fallen on their shoulders this year. School Nurses Week is celebrated May 6th through 12th, 2021, where we would be this year and every year without our talented group. Where would we be this year without our talented group of student nurses? Our nurses provide support, guidance, and a warm, healing hand to all of our students. Cindy, Gina, Kathy, Danielle, and Deb, your work continues to go above and beyond for our MPS Tigers. Many often turn to you for advice. Thank you for your compassion in all that you serve. Certainly a big note of thanks to that group this year, especially as well.
Graduation info, presentation. Mr. Jones, it's always a pleasure to have your presence.
Well, thanks. We have not looked at our graduation requirements in a number of years, and we felt like over the past few years it was probably time to do that. When Mr. Williams started, him and I in his previous role had some discussions about that, and so we felt like this year would be a good year to start to look at that and just have some discussions with the idea that if a change was going to be brought forward, that would be through board policy, and that's policy 613. So this process actually started back in December, and having some conversations with our building site leadership team. And we reviewed some of the information you'll see today. Then in December, we were in distance learning at this time. And so we brought the high school staff and Maytech staff together virtually, had some discussions and shared with them, put them into some small group to have some discussions about what, if any, changes do we need to consider for our students moving forward. At the same time, this discussion coincided with the next presentation that you'll hear regarding career and tech ed, and how do we create opportunities for our students to have the ability to look at some of those classes that we want to move forward with. We fast forward back to January. To January, brought back the feedback that I collected from staff. We reviewed that. with our site leadership team. And then at the end of January, met with our parent advisory committee, which was a small group who attended. That's the district-wide group. Shared the information with them, put them through the presentation, got some feedback from those parents. In March, April, we had parent-teacher conferences. So we had another opportunity for parents. Met with some parents at that time, talked them through with the presentation, got some feedback, made some adjustments. I have reported it to Mr. Williams and the board here. Our times are a little bit off, but that was our plan going forward. So we tried to stick to that, even though the months don't exactly match up completely. And then the idea that the board would act on policy 13 or take a look at that and consider our recommendations for any changes. Review. And so some of you board veterans might recall some of these things. But back in the mid-90s, you can see that we required, in addition to the overall number of credits, I couldn't find what the overall number of credits were back then, but Marshall was a 7-period day where the core classes lasted for the entire school year. And you can see up on the board what we required. Then in 1988, 1999, the high school moved to a block schedule, and we put in place some additional specific credit requirements in those core areas. And students needed 21.5 credits to graduate. And then in the following years, that gradually increased as more students went from the 7-period day to the block schedule. They had the opportunity to earn additional credits. And so in 2004, 2005, the last year that Marshall High School was in this building, we had a group that started to really look at that. We'd gotten to 30.5 credits as the benchmark, which is what it still is today, needed for graduation. And as we got ready to transition to the new building, we made some additions, such as one credit of fine arts, 1 credit in technology, half credit in consumer awareness, and half credit in careers. And so those have been since that time. And since those years, we've made some minor variations within specific departments as the state has provided us with requirements, but also just making some small tweaks. But the overall number of credits within those departments has remained the same. As our courses have changed, we've made a few small adjustments. So here would be what we share with our students, and these would be graduation requirements from the Department of Education, which they require. These are the minimums, and I've highlighted the word minimum because if you look at that, the number of credits, 21.5, is much less than what we require our students to have. And this would be for that traditional 7-period day that these schools have. If we look at our MHS requirements, you can advance that one. You can see there the bulletin. These would be our minimum requirements that a student has to have to graduate from Marshall Public Schools, both Marshall High School and Maine Tech. And so 4 credits in language arts, 4 in social studies, 3 in math, 3 in science, 1 in fine arts, 1 in PE, 1 in tech, half a credit in career, half a credit of consumer awareness, half a credit of health, and then 12 credits of electives. So those electives, students can take more classes in those core areas if they want, but again, that's the minimum. So if we look at a side-by-side comparison, you can see the graduation areas for the Department of Ed, Marshall Public Schools, and then down below, just another way to look at and see what those local graduation requirements are. A little bit kind of an easier view side by side. So 21.5 to 30.5. This is just a kind of a pie chart. And what I would point out here is that the largest part of the pie, so 39% of the credits come from those elective areas. And we really think those elective areas are critical for career exploration, for students to have the opportunity to find their passion, pursue advanced study, really prepare themselves in terms of what they want to do for the next step. The other 61% are what we require, and that is part of having students have a liberal arts education. So they get exposure to a lot of different things. And we see repeatedly throughout the years and every year where students find something that really excites them that they never would have chosen otherwise if we didn't require or sort of nudge them into those areas. All of our graduation requirements aren't specific to one particular area, such as technology and consumer awareness, fine arts. You can get those in different departments and a variety of different classes. Even though it's a graduation requirement, it's not specific to one specific class. In ESB, we put a PDF file that you can access, which just shows a comparison of what other schools that would be of similar size throughout south central, southwest part of the state, even some starts to get to the central part of the state. I'll call it outstate Minnesota schools. And so when we looked at that, there are some differences, lots of similarities, and we felt like what we expect of our students really does continue to fall in line with those other schools. We've always had conversations about possible graduation or adjustments to our graduation requirements. Some of those that we hear most often are around whether that comes from the state, or whether that comes from local sources or recommendations from different education groups. One around personal finance, a feeling that students should have that in order to graduate. Technology seems to always, it's probably drawn more of a positive suggestion over the past 2 years, year and a half, than what it used to be. It's largely integrated, and we certainly feel like that continues to be very relevant. Computer applications, the business community, we hear repeatedly that kids don't have the skills they need, particularly around Word and Microsoft Excel, spreadsheets, and a Word document. Those are the most common programs. And then around consumer awareness. How do we teach our kids how to be a wise consumer, whether that be media, social media, whether that be in business, making smart purchases, kind of leads into personal finance as well. So those are some areas that talk from our staff, talk from some of the input from parents. Those were some of the things that we heard, and that's not specific to this year, but we've heard those over the years. So where have we been? Where are we going? Just kind of come back to this. We're at what we think is kind of the end of this process, which is a process that we're ready to hand this over to the board to consider any changes. We had some discussions. Trish, go ahead if you would, please. We've got some options. And we talked about, do we increase the credits? Do we decrease the credits? Do we leave the overall number of credits as they are? Do we make some adjustments within, if you think back to that pie graph, how that's distributed? And in the end, we really felt like our recommendation would be, as the administrative recommendation, bring it to the board, to remove the technology credit, which at first thought might seem sort of contradict where we've been. But the fact that the technology is so integrated into all of our classes now, not having it be a standalone credit, I feel like our students, even when we return to face-to-face, are completely immersed in technology throughout their 4 years of their high school experience. And I'm learning that they are being exposed to it at the 5.8 level. And so this credit would move to a general elective credit instead. So that percentage of elective credits would increase from 39% up a few percentage points. Talk about the why. I would still continue when we meet with students and we talk about registration for the next year. I would still strongly encourage them to consider our computer applications class. I think that's a class that will help them. Word documents and spreadsheets will help them moving forward in their other classes, in whatever post-secondary opportunities they explore. But I also realize that not all students need that. If I'm going to go into trades, maybe there are some other elective classes that would better suit me than taking a class on spreadsheets. It all kind of depends on that student. So that would really be more of a recommendation. And I feel like that is supported from what we've heard from our staff and from the parent feedback sessions that we've had. By doing so, by removing that technology, that would allow for increased opportunities for those career exploration types of classes. All students would continue to have our careers class, which we require as a junior, but it would free up some real estate within their schedule to allow them to pursue other interests. That might be another upper level class in mathematics or social studies or language arts, but it might be another hands-on class, an advanced class, a metals class, a home improvement or home repair type of a class, and have the opportunity to expose themselves to some areas that they otherwise just couldn't fit into their schedule. Also, think that at some point we'll see another state mandate. And when that day comes, whether it be around personal finance or anything else, removing that tech credit provides us and our students with some flexibility while not losing even more elective space. So it builds in a bit of a buffer for when that next state mandate, state requirement comes. And you know, who knows when that'll be. We haven't gone through this process for over 20 years, and we felt like, or 15 years, and we felt like it was really time to do that. So any changes, we would also ask the board to consider not having those start until the class of 2025, so that it wouldn't affect our current high school students. But if action were taken, it would start with next fall's 9th grade class, and they would, you know, sort of grandfather that through. So, things that the board has for us.
Question, but I do have a comment. Having a junior going into recruitment and 2 8th graders going into their freshman year, I was really happy to read this because looking at fitting all those credits in electives with my junior was really hellish. And the twins being 8th grade, they weren't technologically savvy than I am, right, or would hope to be, and so it seemed redundant to then have that tech piece separately because it's so integrated into all of what they've done with the one-to-one tech and everything else. So I think this is a great middle ground idea. I just wish they could start it now.
You know, we saw that, really, I think the push for that came probably when we went one-to-one, and we started training our teachers on more tools in their toolbox for students to use. Prior to that, I still think that was the right thing to do, but I think we need to at least look at it to make sure we're keeping up with the times, so to speak.
And like you said, it gives you more flexibility for kids for electives.
It does, for now.
Yeah.
Until, you know, maybe we have a change from the state. And I, Beth and I had talked the standards, they kind of maybe pushed some of those back a little, but I know with the social studies standards, there's been lots of discussion around personal finance. And we've had a personal finance class for years. We require senior level economics. The question is, what do those standards look like, and are they able to be embedded into an existing course, or does that become a new requirement? And we just don't know yet. Making, you know, if we were to implement this recommendation, that gives us a little bit of flexibility should it need to be a new course, and doesn't come at the expense of eliminating other areas or other opportunities.
Share the board too that we asked Brian to share this presentation this evening with you on the plan to bring that policy with revisions forward at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Brian.
On our presentation, career tech ed program. Kind of hard to follow Mr. Jones, isn't it?
I know, I just asked if you wanted to do this one.
I said I'm good. I'll pass.
Beth and I just wanted a chance to share a little bit about the career and technical. I know I think it was beginning of March, we had Ariane Ferris here with us and Brian shared, and Beth kind of talked about part of that project. We want to talk a little bit more about the project we've been working on this year. Really, this project is focused on the strategic plan goal that was a priority for the board for this year. And as we've looked at this, we're thinking about opportunities for kids. So as Brian talks about graduation requirements and the different pieces of account each student need, within the career and technical program, we're thinking how can we meet through this program as well. Does this work now? Or? So as we've had this conversation, we really looked a lot at our mission to educate, support, and prepare all learners for success. So think about the preparing all learners. Our conversation's been around what does that look like? We know it's not the same for all kids. And with the CTE, that's not only a focus across the state, but it's been a big focus in Marshall for some time too, and thinking how do we enhance or increase opportunities in those hands-on CTE type classes for our students.
With that, we just wanted to do a kind of a little review of what we talked about, what we shared with you at our presentation back in March. But when we think about our students, or if you go, you're talking to a senior, you might say, hey, where are you headed next year for college? It's just kind of something we always ask them. But really, we have to get it ingrained in our head. It should be, what's your career? What type of path are you going to do after college? Are you heading to a four-year university? Are you going to a technical school or two-year, what type of thing? And then from there, what training might you be interested in? So really getting our kids to think about that too, that if they're not necessarily interested in a four-year university, it's okay. We want them to be able to explore those type of things more when they're at Marshall High School. So with that, as you know, we're teaming with PIC, or the Private Industry Council. Ariane Ferris has been huge in helping us get this going. And what PIC really goes with is getting those, like you can see up here, the employability and getting the kids ready. And that's what they do. And we feel just with our partnership with PIC that we can even expand upon what we're doing already with their help. Their skills as well.
I know you've seen this one before. I don't expect anyone to read the print because it's like size 2. But within our current system, we talk about career pathways when our students are registering for classes and meeting with the counselors. I know Brian's talked about this a number of times. We have this career pathway, this wheel, where we look at all these different career focus areas and we've aligned courses that line up to that. So that's part of our conversation now. How do we help prepare students for these different areas? Part of that then, as we're thinking about future plans, taking those conversations we've had, we realize we want to continue to look forward, continue to expand and improve upon some of those opportunities we have, specifically within CTE. And one of the pieces we've identified, we talked about in the March meetings, this work-learn coordinator as part that came out of this conversation. We've talked to other districts that have this type of position as someone that's housed or hired. Actually, this person, we've hired this person through PIC. It's completely a grant funded piece, so it's not any additional cost to the district, but I think the benefit will be great for our students. They'll be connecting with businesses and connecting with our teachers and with our school staff to help connect for students to internships and job shadows and that question and answer time, even classroom pieces, so they can find out more about potential careers and what that might look like. I mentioned we've got this person hired. I'm really excited to meet them. They just kind of got going in the back of maternity leave. We've got a meeting, actually. We're going to meet this person this week, later this week. But this was funded through a grant from Pride the Tiger Foundation is helping to fund this. We got a LIFT grant. That's a big part of that. And we're also, the number of community partners have been part of this conversation. The chamber is a big piece of that too. So we're hoping to house this person. They're going to have an office space at the chamber. So they'll be, as businesses are passing through, they'll be able to connect with local business people. And just that those connections and relationships will naturally take place with that. We're really excited about those opportunities.
And I would say with that too, Ariane Ferris met with, I would say, key groups of our high school teachers. I don't remember how long ago that was, maybe a month ago or so ago, whatever it was. She met with them just to find out what are your needs, what's your vision, what do you see this work-learn coordinator? And I've been talking to different staff members, and they've already been in contact with our new work-learn coordinator. She just came back, I think, a week or two ago. So we've already had those connections being made, which is exciting because they can say, hey, I'm really looking for whatever it is. So exciting that those connections are already starting in the school. So current opportunities with our CTE programming, we have great things going. Our goal is to expand them. We have things in our agriculture business and industrial technology, housed at Marshall Public Schools. And then we also, of course, have our additional programs with our career internship, Project Lead the Way, a partnership with Lakeview School District, and then our aviation careers with Merved. So we have some exciting things going on, but like I said, continue to expand. So I have all these huge, great plans we want to do, but we really need to focus it because we want to do something well and then continue expanding from there. So we've really decided, let's really focus on our own automotive moving forward next year, with auto body and auto mechanics, and then potentially the year after, then going into the construction trades, and then just, of course, continuing from there.
Conversations as we've chosen pieces, we've had a lot of conversations this year with community members, business owners, with through the chamber, through all these some studies and such as what is the workforce need, what training is available, and how do we find things that can fit within our school. Part of the conversation on adding these things that we're excited to do, we need some space to do it. So the idea that we've been working with is a Marshall Cte Academy is what we've kind of dubbed it. And we're expanding these courses in automotive, auto body, need some space to make this happen. So we're having some conversations around, is there some space available that we could lease, and we could expand this programming, add some staffing out there. So as we're coming forward with budget in the next couple of weeks too, some of those pieces of staffing are centered around how to make this happen. A space for it, staff for it, to make this happen too. And that we'll talk about curriculum in just a minute. But really wanted to expand that space and have that opportunity for kids. And in that conversation, we've talked some with ABE, and that would be an ongoing conversation too, is if we can make this happen during the day, what other opportunities could there be nights and weekends for the community to use a space like this too? Because we know this is a need that we have employers that are really looking for employees. I heard some of you talking about at your workplaces, but before the meeting started, it's hard to find people right now. So how do we find that need, for, give the training for these people and get them workforce ready?
And when we kind of thought, where we saw a need through the different studies that have been going on with the automotive, let's focus on that next year. We kept saying, what can our kids leave with? I want them to leave with something. When we think of welding, they can leave with their welding certification, or CNA, they leave with their CNA certification. So what can they have? So did a little research, and Mike Braithwaite did a lot of research into this, and he and I met with some representatives with Snap-on, and they have certification that Mike will become certified in order to teach these classes, and then the kids will leave with certifications. So we were lucky enough to get a Pride in the Tiger grant that will cover two of the kits that we'll be able to use starting next year. So the multimeter certifications, and you can see underneath there, those are the certifications that are on. So of course he will teach the class to the students, and then they do have to pass an assessment in order to get each of those different certifications, along with the battery starting and charging certifications as well. So we're continuing. We were super excited to get the Pride in the Tiger grant to have these two. So it's like we have a start. That's a good start. And then of course there are other ones that we want to continue to look into expanding to everything in the automotive world that you can about imagine. So it's exciting things.
Beth came in my office after she had been at an original meeting that we were like, I don't know if this meeting's going to amount to anything. She came back, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So we got to stop. Drop what you're doing so we can talk about this. Yeah, pretty excited about some of these opportunities. So next steps with this, we want to make this happen one way or another next year. If we can make this happen, or if we can expand and find a space, that would be great too. We've started some conversations, looking at some options out there and that sort of thing, but we want to continue working on that. We do have lease levy funds available. Last fall it was approved as part of the lease levy that you guys approved. So we have some funds available to do that and continue with the staffing, the curriculum in the schools, that sort of thing. We just wanted to bring it to a formal presentation and talk about it a little bit and share some of the conversations we had. COVID has been a lot this year. There's been a lot going on this year. This has been a fun piece this year. This has been our fun project going forward.
Something I forgot to mention too with the governors is at Due North. I believe this Due North plan, a huge part of it is CTE. So when we saw that come out, whenever that was earlier this year, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're like doing what he's talking about. So kind of exciting.
As far as the staffing, is Minnesota West be involved with some of this too, or are we gonna try to staff it all ourselves?
We're going back and forth the best way to do that right now. Certainly they'll be part of the conversation though, because right now they're staffing our welding course and our CNA courses. So some of it depends on the space and how the schedules work out, that sort of thing too. But we want to continue to work with them in some way.
So
So we
will
can
some
offer
of it
credit.
be open to the public, like the CNA and the welding, or?
We are
still
now.
looking at that?
Yeah, we can want to maintain that through AVE is where a lot of that's happening. But yeah, we definitely want to maintain that. That's been a big piece of that program, is having this available more than just our students.
Target for this fall?
We're targeting this fall.
Good.
That's great. Have you been out to Watertown, Tech School?
Well, I'm originally from Watertown, so I've been there, but not in a long time. Yeah.
That is a great tour to see how that's all set up. They have probably the best program I've ever seen. And maybe have needed any
Sure.
guidance or help. They're super program, super program.
And we didn't visit with them. We visited with a few schools earlier this fall.
Right, we're finding so many programs around
Yeah.
the state and the area that are really have some good things going, and those are the kind of connections we want to make. And
Right.
Yeah.
I'll have to remember the Watertown one though. Mhm.
I can think back in my 2+ years on the board, I think I've been approached by more people about this issue than any other issue that we've had conversations about. And I know I've shared that with both of you two before, but this is great stuff. This is exciting and glad to hear it. So.
And I think it's great if you find the workers or the work companies out there to know exactly what they're looking for. Like we can have somebody certified in welding, but they don't really need them if they're not certified on the computer side. Everything's computerized now. So it's great to have that partnership.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're already having businesses reach out. I get probably a couple of emails, once, not every week, but I'm like, oh, another business is looking for, how can we partner with you with the program? So it's exciting.
Great.
Yeah.
thank you.
Super. Thank you.
He did better than Brian, by the way.
Brian's still here.
Yeah. Board members, anybody have anything they'd like to bring up?
The Bond Oversight Committee met shortly after our last meeting, and everything for the Southview is on target. A few change orders and things like that, but everything is going really smooth. We also have a tentative plan for the grand opening and tours for the community, so we'll be working on that through the summer.
Southwest West Central Solar Service Co-op Board wanted me to stand there. Going.
Good. Moving on to our discussion item, second reading of policy 420, 425, and 427.
These policies, there really were no significant changes to any of them.
Moving on to our action items, approval of contract with Noah Park Daycare to purchase the Marsh Area Child Care Center and sublease the facility. Motion to approve.
One second.
Open for discussion.
The conversation has gone really well with Canoga Park. I'm looking forward to, originally the recommendation was that we close the daycare. We didn't have any options, and decided that this option has come forward. We can keep these daycare spots open, knowing that that's a need in the community. That's ultimately what we're hoping for. So, at a July 1st transition, make this happen. And
Any comments? Call for a vote, please. It is approved. Authorization for parent-student connectors summer hours. Do we have a motion?
So moved. I'll second.
Open for
sure, this is some additional hours with our parents or connectors. We did this last year. It was a big benefit to have these staff available some extra hours in the summer, getting parents informed of all the changes and such and ready for the fall.
the meeting. Can we vote? It is approved. Peer review of policies 801, 802, 805, 807, 809, 714. Motion to approve them. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Open for discussion. Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. It is approved. Move to closed session pursuant to the Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05 Subdivision 3B to engage in discussions with the board's legal counsel related to litigation in the case of Marshall Concerned Citizens, ETALB, Independent School District 413, la-di-da-da, court file number 21 CV 01038. Then at this meeting itself, it is a script for the chair to read. Okay, not that. Minnesota Open Meeting Law, Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05, Subdivision 3B, allows for school board to close a meeting to engage in attorney-client privilege discussions. The board has been sued in the litigation as outlined on the agenda. The board seeks to meet with its attorney to discuss the lawsuit. It would be detrimental to the district's interests for the board to hold a public discussion with his attorney where any adverse party or their attorneys can listen or be made aware of our attorney's advice related to the litigation. It is in the district's best interest for the board to obtain legal advice in a confidential setting to maintain the attorney-client privilege. Accordingly, I will hereby entertain a motion that this meeting be closed pursuant to the attorney-client privilege for the reasons cited. I'll second. We shall vote. Okay. Who's it? All for a vote. Is approved.